If you've ever played fantasy baseball, you know the rhythms of the baseball season. That in any given week, most regular major leaguers can hit like an MVP, while an actual MVP can, for a short period, be fairly mediocre. But what about 60 games? Can Mike Trout be ordinary, or say Cesar Hernandez be the MVP? Well, let's start with Mike Trout. Last year, he had a savagely high 180 weighted runs created plus. League average is 100, so 180 is 80% better than that. It's a huge amount. It led the American League. So what's his lowest 60-game stretch? It was actually 168. So Trout is so consistent, his worst stretch over 2 months is still good enough to have him among the league leaders. But that's Mike Trout, you say. Well, now here are the actual league leaders from last year. And you see, Christian Yelich dipped to a 149 over 60 games, Alex Bregman to 139, Nelson Cruz and George Springer to 133. They're still very good hitters, and that's at their worst span over 60 games. Cody Bellinger did have a big drop for 60 games toward the end of the year. But even Bellinger, at his worst, was at 117. A hitter at 117 weighted runs created plus is still a very good hitter. Now, what about the other side of things? What about the best 60-game stretch for the hitters with the worst weighted runs created plus? Here is the list. Guys like Billy Hamilton and Chris Davis, who just didn't hit last year. No one on the list had a 60-game stretch that was even league average. League average, again, is 100. Not only that, no one was even at 85. You have to have some very good fielding or running skills to stay in the league at 85. So, in our initial review, this is by no means a full scientific study, but we see there are limits to the ups and downs for hitters. 60 games might not mean performance is normalized, but there are ups and downs as well for players even in 162 games. So if a player plays the full 60, we should expect somewhat normal results, at least from the top and also the bottom. Now what about pitching? Kind of a different story. A 60-game season is about 12 starts at best, and there is a fluctuation. Hyunjin Ryu had the best ERA in baseball last year, a 2.32. His worst 12-game stretch, he was over 4. Pitching seems to be more of a hot and cold groove, even though 12 starts seems like a decent sample. Ryu, Jacob deGrom, Garrett Cole, Jack Flaherty all had ERAs over 4 at some 12-start stretch. League average, by the way, is about 4.5. And they're among the league leaders. Justin Verlander, Mike Soroka were the most consistent, but there's some hot and cold among elite pitchers. And this is the elite. Now, what about the other side? Here are the pitchers with the worst ERAs among pitchers with 150 innings. Given that to pitch 150 innings in the majors, you have to have decent talent. But Rick Porcello and Yusei Kikuchi had ERAs near 5.5 last year. They got roughed up. And yet, in separate 12-game spans, they were quite good. Porcello had a 3.30, Kikuchi a 3.82. All of the 5 trailers in ERA for a 60-game stretch, by and large, had a sub-4 ERA at some point and were better than league average. Again, major league average 4.49. So possibly we could expect more surprises in pitching than we will in hitting.